I was at work, and in those days you got a letter through the door. You know, you sit but I had to go to work, so I actually listened to they announced it in the radio.
It was pretty wild. I remember a Facebook page with like 500,000 likes for Justice for Bod.
I think I actually was on that, sorry. Yeah, there was kind of people kind of nearly, not screaming, but they were kind of, you could hear them in agony at the side of the change room. And the rest of us were kind of picking ourselves together, and there was guys who had been knocked out and stuff. So it was a brutal test match.
You know, as the Lions do, we've got a great day out planned, and they were like, okay, we're going to the safari park, but you've got to go in the discoveries, you know, that the Lions had, and you've got to keep your windows up the whole time. And I was like, I might as well go on YouTube. Like, there's just no point.
Welcome then to the beautiful 45 in Kensington for this British and Irish Lions Roundtable. I'm Tim Cocker, host, and I've been joined by four guys representing the four quarters of that famous crest and representing different eras of the Lions story, from the 89 tour down under, Craig Chalmers.
How you doing?
We've got Luke Fitzgerald from 09, JD John Fox Davies from 13 and 17, and a bit of a crossover between you and Anthony Watson, who also went on and played in South Africa in 21. Gents, thank you. Great to have you.
Thanks very much.
Anthony, a lot of people, I'll start with you, a lot of people even a year ago would have had you on their radar for this squad and maybe a test start. With your recent retirement, how do you reflect on your Lions story?
I haven't spent a massive amount of time reflecting, to be fair, but you know, when I think about going on the first one, it probably stands out to me more because of, you know, the second one obviously being in COVID, and I think where I was at before that tour, I wasn't necessarily expecting to go on it, or let alone even once I got on, I wasn't expecting to start. So I think that journey that I went on, and the people I met as a result of it, that first one will always stand out to me as the best, and it's definitely in my top three, you know, best rugby memories is that tour. You know, met so many good people, and you know, I think from the outset started off not thinking that there was a few guys that I wasn't going to be friends with or worried about who I was going to be cool with, and then you fast forward 3 weeks after the tour, and those very same people I thought I wouldn't get on with, I was out with in Vegas with. So it shows you how special the Lions is, and whenever you bump into those guys, no matter where it is, it's like yesterday, you know, that you were together. I'm sure these guys will say the same, but the Lions will always hold a special place in my heart for sure.
Craig, what do you make of what the Lions has become? Because from 89 to now, it's come away, hasn't it?
It's come away a lot. 36 years ago, so I can hardly remember it, to be fair. I think I was only 12 at the time when I was there, I think. But listen, there was 30 players back in those days. You 30 players in tour. There was a total squad that went out there of 35 people. I think 11 Englishmen, 9 Scots, amazing, 3 Irish and 7 Welsh. And you know, I went across there as a 20-year-old. I was a Lion cub, so I had to carry the Lion about fairly regularly. But it wasn't. Yeah. All these just English forwards are trying to hide it. Mike Teague and Gareth Chilcott, yeah, all the jokers. But no, it was a great experience. I only had 4 caps at the time, so it was, you know, to get selected for the Lions so young and so quickly. You know, was a great honour. I hadn't really thought about it that much, but once you're on tour, you just want to get in the test team, and unfortunately for Paul Dean, he got injured early. I think he got injured before he went, but he made the plane and got off the other side. Got his
he made the kick-off party. Yeah.
got his first week's allowance, which was £25 a day back in those days, guys. Yeah, so we were well looked after. Yeah. That was a lot of beers and coffees. But no, listen, it was a fantastic experience, and unfortunately, I never did it again. I broke my arm in 1993, and hopefully we'd have went on that trip to New Zealand, and then crap selection. 97. But no, listen, it's a great experience, and these guys, as you know, as Anthony says, the guys that you went to tour with, and our tour, we lost the first test to Australia quite heavily, and it's the only test series to lose the first test and come back and win the series. So we won the next 2 tests without me. I was on the bench. I was a good bench man. And we came back and won the two tests, and we won the series over in Australia. So it was, all these guys. Bumped into Brian Moore on Saturday at the England game. Always good to see little Brian. He was smiling as well. He was in a happy mood. He's pleased to see me. So he was my roommate after we won the test series in
2 very
in
similar
Sydney.
Personalities, actually. Yeah.
In Sydney. There's all these England forwards. You had to share. It was a back and a forward, so I had to share with English forward in most stops. But I always remember Brian got absolutely smashed. I don't know if you could put this on air, but
do it anyway.
Absolutely, he got absolutely smashed. He walked across the Sydney Bridge, back to the hotel, and I came back to the room with the young lady back in the day. It was I was only 20, young guy. I came back and she went into the bathroom, and Brian was lying in bed sleeping, but he'd been sick all over the bathroom, and Brian loved red wine. It was like somebody being murdered. There was red wine everywhere, but that's what touring was all about, and we had some great experiences, and just thankfully there was no, mobile phones back in those days.
Well, yeah, I will definitely get some more stories of the midweek dirt trackers, but I mean, we can't all be like JD, 6 test starts and not really knowing what a midweek team's all about. But I was
when you come to me then.
I was going to say. So, Ant's experience of South Africa, we can definitely come on with that, because you didn't get the full experience of that country. But your one tour was what some would regard as the ultimate, because of just how seriously they take their rugby.
Yeah, look, amazing place to go on tour. Yeah, I really felt for the crew that went out during COVID, because as we all know, very passionate bunch, the South African supporters. But then when you bring the kind of Lions, kind of Red Sea contingent into it, it was a brilliant couple of weeks. And I just echo what the 2 guys were saying. The tours that we went out with, just, as Anthony said, that really resonated with me. It was kind of looking at guys going, I don't think I'll get on with that fella, or I'm not sure we'll mix that well. But after a couple of weeks, everyone kind of mucks in together and got on like unbelievably well. And I think we probably got that last tour just before kind of camera phones and all that kind of stuff came in. We probably had a little bit of the professional side of things, but got a little bit of maybe the amateur era stuff too, which was kind of pushed from Geach and the management. So we all got on like a house on fire. Had a great time out there. It was a brilliant test series, I think. Pretty closely fought. Obviously, we had a few missed opportunities in the first one, but then everyone remembers that second test in Pretoria. I mean, what a battle that was. Great one to be involved with. Unfortunately, obviously, came out the wrong side of it. But amazing tour, amazing people. I think you always have that connection. Even we haven't been on a Lions tour together, but you can always kind of have that little bit of connection with other Lions just because of kind of what you've gone through. And I think, it's great to hear the lads' stories as well. It's a brilliant time. I'm looking forward to obviously watching in the summer. Can't wait for them. It's such an exciting time for anyone in the home nations. You're still relatively recently retired. So when you look back at your career, where do those Lions tours rank? Obviously, player of the series in the New Zealand tour.
No, obviously the Lions tour is obviously up at the top. The experiences, the bonds you create, and I think if you're lucky enough to be a Lion, it makes your international experience even better, because when you play against your ex-teammates on the Lions tour post-match, is that you can go and have a chat. It's not, once the final whistle's done, you can go in for a beer afterwards, you can chat, catch up, and it's a real club that you're involved in, and it's really special. And I love my experiences, and Australia, I was relatively young going out there and enjoyed that. And then in 2017 going to somewhere like New Zealand where they're so passionate about rugby, it was full on, but it was a great experience to feel that pressure. Playing at the highest level, it's a great opportunity to really test yourself as a rugby player. Yeah, what does that pressure feel like? How different does it feel from say Six Nations that's on at the moment? I think it's just the level, training, Did you find that with the training? Because I wasn't sure when I went out about, when you go into international training from your kind of club,
you're going, well, that's a big step up. And I was like, well, I'm assuming it's similar, but I felt like the level went up again.
Yeah, and especially like when you get into the contact drills, the forwards are like, they just like love to take a shot at on the pads and stuff, and you just it just felt quicker and more intense, and that's what I took away from it. It just like prepared you for that extra level then in games.
I don't know how it works now, but when we went in the Lions tour in '89, there was 9 Scots went, so we trained together in Scotland. We knew we were going just after the Five Nations finished. So we got together and we trained together Tuesday nights, Thursday nights, once in Edinburgh, once in the borders, because we all lived, well, most of us lived at north of the border. And then we came down and met each other at Oatlands Park Hotel down in Surrey, and we went to train at London Irish, the old London Irish ground, and we were training really hard. And we came down and did bleep tests back in those days.
Self-inflicted.
Wow.
Never heard
But
that.
the Scottish guys were fitter than anybody. I think they were 7 out of the top 10 were Scottish guys fit. So I think it gave the English guys a real kick at the backside, and the Welsh boys and the 3 Irish guys that were on trip. So it was it was just different. It was a totally different experience probably that we had to what you had. I mean, your season didn't finish until May.
He arrived out
June?
to our one. I think there was a couple of Leinster guys. I was in the Leinster team, and there was a few Leicester guys who played in the Heineken Cup final. So we actually went out. I think we were maybe leaving for South Africa on maybe a Friday, but we arrived in maybe the Thursday or something. It was some weird, maybe it was a Monday, and we might have arrived in that Sunday. So we kind of arrived a little bit later and didn't play the first match even, I think.
In 2017, we played the Pro 14 final on the Saturday and flew in on the Sunday, and then flew Monday then to New Zealand. But then in Australia 2013, because we'd finished the season, whoever isn't in end of season competition, they have like 2 or 3 weeks training together, so there's a smaller group.
Did you do that one as well?
They get hammered, don't they?
Nowhere to hide in those ones.
No,
Oh my
and everyone's
God.
gunning for each other.
Yeah.
But they get a good balance as well, because you try and have a bit of fun as well. But mostly people are trying to, get one up or see where their markers are, So it's always interesting, those sessions.
My last game, remember it well. I hadn't played for the Barbarians, and so Mickey Steele-Bodgett, I was the only player that was going to the Lions tour that hadn't played for the Babas. So he said, "You've got to come and play against Cardiff in the Easter tour." So I was like, "Okay." So another good weekend in Cardiff. So I went down, played in that, and this massive big Welsh prop fell on me in the first minute. I thought, "Oh, sugar, what's gonna?" I was fine, thankfully, but made it through the Cardiff evening, and
that's the more
exactly.
We made it through that, and who was I with? I was with Rob Saunders actually. Rob Saunders took me out in Cardiff that night with.
You were definitely looking to get out of there.
With Paul Rendell and Jeff Probin as well. They were playing, so yeah, it's an old school night out in Cardiff. But that was my last game before tour, so it was middle of April. And then there's no more games until you go out to Perth.
It's difficult, because the announcements maybe is it end of April, and you might have a couple of games, and it's at the back of your mind, and you're thinking, right, I just want to get on the plane, because you work so hard, and it happens every 4 years. And I remember when the season finished, I was like, thank God for that. And it is a tricky one, because I know quite a few players have got injured in those games.
There's always one or two. It's a killer, isn't it? Yeah.
So it's you're dodging tackling.
I was dodging tackling anyway, bro.
So you try and get on the plane. You get there, you compete. The intensity of training that there is, everyone's geared towards that test start. And we've got 4 gentlemen here. There's some great British and Irish Lions tourists that never got a test. What do you remember? How do you find out? When do you find out? What's that moment like?
Well, it's probably different for everyone, isn't it? I had to play a midweek game, so I think we'd had a bit of a rough. So the guy who was in my position, probably figure out who it is. I'm not going to name names, but he had a rough enough day out in the first test. He kind of dropped a couple of balls close to the line, And I was kind of selected to play this one on, I think it might have been on Tuesday night maybe, against South Africa A. So I knew if I kind of did okay in that one, it was a good chance I might get in into the test team. But I do remember being a little bit sweaty, hoping I, just get through this one. Don't make any big mistakes or whatever. And then I kind of found out on the Thursday. But the most challenging part of that was actually getting through the rooming list, because I was rooming with Andy Powell on that Sunday night.
Days.
It was the best guy ever. Like, he was like one of the funniest blokes I think I've come across. He was like absolutely integral part of the tour, and as the lads will know, he probably wasn't going to get selected. He probably knew he wasn't going to get selected maybe a couple of weeks out towards the end, but like, he kept the spirits of everyone up. He was a proper character. But I remember thinking, like, this guy's going out to the death, like, every night. I was like, how am I going to get some sleep before this match? I remember waking up, I think it was just the day before, and like, I woke up and I was saying, the guys were going through their fake tan phase, so I kind of turned over.
You say guys, you mean the Welsh guys?
The Welsh boys, yeah, the Welsh boys, sorry. They were doing their fake tan, so they were all orange, these fellas, but like huge men. And I turned over my bed, and I said, like, he's spread-eagled, like naked on the bed. And Jesus, like, that's a bit on the nose first thing in the morning. And then I look up at the ceiling, there's a pizza on like above the bed. And like, that's a bit unusual. And I get out of bed and crunch, and there's Cheetos all the way into the jack. So I'd obviously been eating the Cheetos and a pizza. How the pizza didn't fall on me in the middle of the night. I remember thinking, okay, like, he did ask me, like, listen, I'm going to head out. I was like, look, just try not wake me up or whatever. I'm trying to want to play well on Tuesday night. But that was one of my biggest memories of the tour, is that morning with Powley going, like, how did I not wake up during that? But I got through the night with Powley anyway and did okay in the test, and then the Thursday I picked the team. So yeah.
How is it announced in front of everyone? We've seen notes under the door in that 97 tour. How did you find out?
We just called the squad in,
yeah,
and named the team in front of everyone. Like, it's either done on a projector or what the coach would announce it. I can't remember exactly when. But then I think as the test series moves through to second and third test, and there might be conversations of changes in position. Or
might come back to that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I won't say no more then.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And that moment when you found out.
Oh, it's hard to put it into words. Like, it is a culmination of all your life's efforts, really, to be honest. I think we found out on the Wednesday, because the midweek team played on the Tuesday, or there was a warm-up game on the Tuesday before the test team played on the Saturday. And that was always a bit of a difference between international rugby and the Lions is, when you get into international camp, they always say, don't read into the bibs on Monday. And then, funnily enough, those bibs are the same team that plays on Saturday. But you can't do that with the Lions, because half the team's not training on the Monday because they're playing on the Tuesday. So I'm pretty sure we found out, like Foxy said, in a meeting on the Wednesday, and then straight onto your phone, speak to your parents. First people, I think most people call, isn't it? And just like, don't fuck it up, to be honest with you. So yeah, it was, like I said, mate, it was one of my proudest moments for sure.
Craig, your one test start.
I can't remember. I can't really remember. I think it was probably just in the team meeting.
Yeah.
But Paul Dean had obviously got injured in the first game in Perth, so Rob Andrew was called out to come out on tour. So I played the second game, third game. Rob was out for the fourth game. Then I played New South Wales, which I played pretty well. I had 3 drop goals in that game and 1 near the end to win the match. So, I kind of hoped that I was going to get in the team, but you're never sure.
But the fact you were a young man sounds like you kind of didn't recognise the magnitude
when
of it.
I was on it, I mean, even when I first found out I was going on tour, I don't know how you guys found out, but I was at work, and in those days you got a letter through the door. You sit but I had to go to work, so I actually listened to they announced it in the radio in the Scottish Power garages where I worked. I worked in the offices upstairs, and I was sitting there with the guys from the local border clubs who all worked for Scottish Power, and one of these guys was Jim Rennick, who was a British Lion in 1983, centre, bald head guy, quality player. And I was sitting listening to my name being announced over the radio to go on the tour. and it was alphabetical order. So I found out pretty quickly.
It's
being
killer,
safe.
isn't it?
It's the worst.
But it was amazing. It was amazing feeling just to be going. But to get picked for the test, you want to be in the test team. When you get on tour, just got to get there. Once you get there, you then got to train hard, play hard, and play well. And I hadn't that place in the first test, and unfortunately, we lost that test quite badly. But I always blame Mike Teague for that anyway, because I was sharing. Mike Teague called off injured on the Wednesday, and I was rooming with Mike Teague. So Mike Teague had these couple of mates from Gloucester, a guy called his name was Devereux, and his mate, Tim Smith, fullback. And so when Tiki found out that he wasn't playing, he was still rooming with me, and he went out in the. He was out in the piss on the Thursday night, Friday night with his mates from Gloucester, coming at 3 to 4 in the morning. That was preparing for a test match.
Oh my days!
And we had quite a big room, so they slept in the room as well that night. But so it's Tiggy's fault. I mean, I didn't actually play that badly, I don't think. But listen, the team did perform, and we lost the test match. And thankfully, that tour was really solid. Finlay Calder was our captain, and there was nobody going off in any different direction. We're all very competitive. But Donald Lennon, big second row from Ireland, he was the captain of the midweek team, Donald's Donuts, and I've still got a T-shirt. I got one near the end of the tour, but everyone was really tight, and I think that's the beauty about the Lions, and especially when you win the series, that those winning tours are very, very special. They're all special, but
just on that selection. So first test you started, second test Rob Andrew comes in and replaces you. What was your reaction, or how did you deal with that, or what do you remember of that?
Oh, listen, I think it was actually Clive Rowlands came and said to me. Clive was a lovely guy, and Clive came and put his arm around me. Ian McGeechan never came and spoke to me, but Clive Rowlands did, and put his arm around me and just said there'll be other tours, and Rob's going to start. Because what happened after that first test, we went to Canberra to play ACT or the Brumbies they're called now, and we were getting beat at half time. I wasn't playing, Rob was playing, midweek team was playing, Donald's Donuts were playing, and they were getting beat. In the second half they turned it around, and it kind of turned the tour around from the disappointment of the Saturday. So Rob played really well, and he played test match rugby for quite a few years. It was my first season. So they went with the experienced guy, and listen, when you get dropped, you dig in, you get stuck in, and you leave your shoulder in at training. So, they weren't very big back in those days. But listen, we're all competitive. That's why we were there, and but we got behind each other, and we got behind the team, and fantastic memories of that trip. And I would love to have been playing those last two tests, but I wasn't. And you just got to get behind the team and support the team, and that's the beauty about the Lions, and it's one of the strengths that you've got to have to be picked for the Lions. You've got to have, you've got to be a real team man, and I think most of the guys on that trip, everybody was. It was a very, very tight group.
Natural person to turn to after that, with a player being dropped for a test, is to come to you, JD. And obviously everyone remembers the headlines and all the hype surrounding that final test in Australia. What are your memories of that, and how did Brian O'Driscoll respond?
Well, I remember obviously after the second test we lost, and we flew up to Noosa, which is like a beach town north of Australia, and we had a couple of days off. And Jamie Roberts, who had missed the first couple of tests, he looking to be fit, and he was important how we wanted to play as a team. So I didn't see myself playing because I didn't think they'd drop him, and I thought. On the Sunday then I'd go and have a couple of beers, probably had way too many. And then, the next few days I would just, relax, and I didn't really think about it, and, accepted that, someone who was playing in the 13 jersey had so much experience, and they were going to pick him. And I remember getting called to the coach's office on the Wednesday morning, and I was thinking, here it comes. And they start talking to me, how's your couple of days been? And I was like trying to act like, yeah, I didn't push a boat out on Sunday at all.
Figure out if you did something.
Yeah, it's like, does my breath still smell of alcohol now? So then he just chatted away, and then he goes, right, you're going to have to learn the so-and-so role for the 13 move. They're like, this move here, you need to know what you're doing in the 13 shirt. And I was like, all right. And Gas goes, you know what I'm saying? I was like, yeah. And I said, there's going to be a real shitstorm happening pretty soon. And when the team was announced, it just all blew up then, and it was pretty wild. I remember a Facebook page with like 500,000 likes for Justice for Bod.
I think I actually was on that. Sorry.
I even think my brother was. So yeah, and that was like when social media was at its infancy. So it was pretty, people were baying for blood as such. But having gone through that whole experience, I wouldn't change it, because at the end of that game, it was justified, and we won the Test series. It was about a group of us that we were picked, the squad that was touring to win a Test series together. And I remember on the Friday, just after captain's run, Gas goes, "Oh, how's it been?" And I said, "Oh, it's been eventful." And he goes, "Yeah, just make sure you win now tomorrow, and we'll be okay." And
no pressure.
Cheers, mate.
No pressure. So no, it was like a load of pressure, but I wouldn't change it, because I think it made me perform at a better level as well. But it was something people always want to talk about for some reason. I don't know why.
What was Bod, and I guess other maybe senior Irish players who would have felt that connection with him?
Well, I think the team was announced to everyone, and then we went straight on the bus to training. And you know how the bus works, it's like senior boys at the back, they have the most experience. So I was like near the front at this point, and Brian walks past, shakes my hand, and carries on up to the back of the bus. And he showed up to training, and like we were talking about, the reason why we're all there as Lions is that I think we can, for the good of the team, the team was the most important thing. And that was, to be fair to him, he let me be to prepare for a test match. And it can't have been easy. Everyone, the people that were dropped, I remember certain individuals were just found it tough. And it is, you want to be in the test series decider, and you want to play in the biggest games, and that's the nature of everyone's competitive streak. So it was, I can imagine being tough, and but it panned out all right in the end.
Did. We've got two wingers here who can testify, and had the battle scars to prove just how intense British and Irish Lions Test match rugby is.
I know what you're asking me about.
Obviously,
you're asking that one. I was saying.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah. I mean, that's another one of those enduring images from the 2009 tour. I mean, that test in Pretoria, the sheer brutality of it, which you found out on a personal level as well.
Yeah, the eye gouge, obviously. Yeah. So it was kind of unusual, all right. Yeah, as Anthony will know, the wingers generally try and stay out of the rough stuff as much as possible. But I found myself somehow in a ruck next to Schalkberger, not a pleasant experience. And it was mad. Like, so he gouged me. It was his 50th Test match, I think. And so I kind of find myself kind of wrestling with him. Never a good idea. But he decides to gouge me on top of it after making him mince meat of me as well. So bad start to the test. Obviously, kind of double vision for pretty much the rest of the game, really. And he only got a yellow card first. That was obviously the big talking point of that tour. Even though the linesman had said to the referee at the time that, he's gouged him. He kind of asked me. I said, well, look, he did gouge me. I don't know what to say. Don't want to be a rat, but he did do that.
Can't see.
I can't see, yeah. So, it was unfortunate. They were very lucky, I think, to get away with that one. The pressure of the crowd, the atmosphere in Loftus Versfield, all those things probably contributing factors to it. And in some ways it was good that it didn't ruin his big day out. I mean, that would be a disaster for a guy who's an all-time great, I think, to have kind of maybe cost him a test match there on his 50th day test. But from a Lions perspective, not so great. But look, it was still an unbelievable test match. We still had plenty of opportunities to win the game, close out the game. I mean, half-time, I'll never forget the scenes at half-time in our dressing room. There was two guys, Adam Jones actually, the shoulder was out, so he was kind of, trying to get that put back in. He's
stuck out, wasn't he, or something?
Oh, he's a big boy. In fairness, it's hard to get that shoulder back in. So, there was kind of people kind of nearly not screaming, but they were kind of, you could hear them in agony at the side of the change room, and the rest of us were kind of picking ourselves together. And there was guys who had been knocked out and stuff. So it was a brutal test match. They were an unbelievable team, and we almost brought it to a third test. Unfortunately not, but brilliant occasion. It was unfortunate that we didn't get.
Did Schalkberger speak to you after?
I met the two guys, himself and Backies. Backies put in an unbelievable hit that obviously very highly illegal now, but at that stage I think they were just kind of coming to terms with that. He hit down, I think it was on Jonesy, I think, and dislocated his shoulder. And the two boys were coming in. They'd been out all night, and all our guys decided to go off on. I think they were into Pretoria for a few drinks and drown the sorrows. But I couldn't go on that because the guys wanted me to go and give evidence against Schalk at the hearing the next day. So it was double whammy. Kind of had to leave the team, and then the two boys come in, big kind of grins, Backies and Schalk. It's just me in the room with the two boys, and they were like. They were actually really nice blokes. I actually met Schalk afterwards at the 2015 World Cup. Absolute gentleman, but the South Africans, when they get on the pitch, different beast. But really, really pleasant guys. They obviously were off the back of a big night out, and I was obviously licking my wounds. Look, as I said, lovely guys. As I say, most rugby folk, I think, generally you're trying to kill each other for 80 minutes, but afterwards, enjoy a beer together.
And what was the dressing room like after, obviously, with the way that game finished?
Oh, it was unbelievably dejected. Felt so bad for Raj. I think he's an all-time great in Ireland, has done some unbelievable things across his career. And I always felt like that experience kind of coloured his view maybe a little bit of the kind of Lions, of some of his brilliant achievements in Lions tours. And
he got fielded in Australia, didn't he?
Oh, fielded in Australia, the poor guy.
Duncan McRae, wasn't it? Duncan McRae.
That's right, great memory, jeez. I felt really bad for him, and I actually didn't think it was all his fault, really. I think there was someone else who didn't chase that kick. It's not like, if Roger's putting a Gary Owen up, it's not usual that a 10 would be actually chasing that. So there was another person there who didn't chase that, who got no flack for it. And obviously, look, it was still a pretty clumsy incident. But look, he still had to nail a 50-metre kick to win the thing. So there was not all Roger's fault. I always felt like he was kind of unfairly vilified for that one. We probably, I made a mistake in the first half for one of the tries as well. So I got to slink off into without getting much flack for that. But look, it was a very dejected changing room. It was a very, very close-knit group, as I'm sure your Lions tours were. I could really empathise with what Craig was saying about his tour. It was a real tight-knit bunch, and we were gutted, absolutely gutted. But lads turned it around the next week and finished on a bit of a high. So I think everyone had a good feeling coming away from it. But you always want to be part of a winning Lions tour. I'm envious of you on that one, Craig.
And you had a little encounter with Sonny Bill's shoulder in a very intense series. Again, not exactly like Luke. You were facing the world champions at the time, and that was some series.
Yeah, I mean, I'll never forget the first test. It was like, I couldn't believe how fast they were playing the game. It was like we had no answer to how they were playing, obviously. And then the week after, obviously, as Luke will probably agree, it started raining, and I was like, as a winger, this is not ideal. But for the Lions' chances, it was probably a really good opportunity for us. And the game started off pretty well, and I just remember picking the ball up, and I had Naholo breathing down my neck, which isn't great to start. And then I looked up, and Sonny Bill was there, and I was like, oh God, do the sign of the cross quickly. And next thing I know, I was just on the floor. And I was taken off for a HIA. I didn't even see him get a red card, to be honest with you. Followed the protocol: elbow, apple, carpet, saddle, bubble, whatever it is, all the words you got to say. Mate, it was just ridiculous. But similar to what you were saying about having to bump into those guys, I actually went on holiday with Carl Sinclair afterwards to Fiji, and we walk into this hotel, and who's in the lobby drinking kava? Sonny Bill Williams. I was like, brilliant, this is going to go down. But he, like the other lads, like he was an absolute legend. We sat there and drank kava with him for a couple of hours. I think Sink was there a bit longer than I was. But they were just such lovely blokes. And again, I know everyone says it about rugby, and it's to harp on about it is a bit excessive, but genuinely the people you meet in the game are special, and it doesn't matter if they're on your team, against your team. Generally, rugby lads are very, very good people, and no matter where you bump into them, they're always really good to be around.
Well, I guess the Lions is once every 4 years for people from Great Britain and Ireland, but it's once in a lifetime if you're lucky for these guys, isn't it? So I can imagine, in those conversations, I imagine a Lions series for South Africans, Australians.
Well, look at huge. One of the best centres the world's ever seen, Tim Horan, never played against the Lions. Tim came in at sort of 19 years old. He was playing for Australia A, Australia B against the Lions on that 89 tour, and then by the time the Lions came around again, he was gone. He was over in England playing at Saracens, I think. Sometimes some great players miss out to play against them.
And it's funny because when you say that, like I remember after the South Africans won that World Cup just before the tour, it's obviously 2 years to go before the tour comes, but they all signed back on so they could play a Lions tour, because usually after a World Cup, a lot of the South African lads would kind of head up to France or to England on a kind of big contract, and to kind of, I suppose, earn your way. That's kind of the way it was historically done there, But they all hung around for it, and it made for a brilliant tour.
You guys had big followings, massive support on your Lions tours. In 1989, I reckon maybe about 2 Men and a Dog came in and watched us. There was very, very few people across there in Sydney.
It was mad in New Zealand, in the Cake Tin in Wellington, because I think it only holds like 35, maybe 40,000, and there's close to 20,000 Lions fans out on tour. The stadium almost felt like a home stadium, and one of the best things, like you see all the flags with the club names on and stuff. You can really you can see how much it means to people, because people save up for 4 years to go on a Lions tour.
It's like that in Brisbane, the first test in Brisbane, and on that tour in 2013. Yeah, that was just full of Lions, and Australia tried to change that. They tried to put shirts out and
gave up yellow hats.
Yellow hats.
Safari hats.
They felt outnumbered and out shouted, out supported by the Lions. I've been Brisbane for that first test, and then it changed from Melbourne, and they got behind them. But
feels like 97 was when that kind of all changed, really, wasn't it? Like it kind of took on a life of its own, and then that unbelievable documentary. I mean, I don't know, like for you guys, but like watching that as a kid, I remember thinking, wow, like that is what I want to do.
Yeah, but watching that compared to what you get now in Netflix, I'd much rather have 1997.
John Bentley on the camera.
It was just true, real life stuff, and just what was going on, proper touring. I think Netflix now, the game's try to advertise itself as a but I'm not sure it's doing
more sanitized.
I'm not sure it's doing. I'm not sure it's doing that well.
I think the authenticity of it you lose then, because that 97 was so authentic, because it was almost done by the boys and players.
The honesty,
And the newer documentaries, they're trying to push a narrative down, the people viewing it, and I think then you lose that. The real essence of what rugby's all about.
Yeah, the kind of honesty in the team meeting, the doddy comment, mistaken identity, all that kind of stuff, and you get Bentos underneath his door, getting his letter, and he's a character, and rugby's got lots of characters. Not everybody's got to be a character, but it's got some great characters, and then I think when you look back, that too. That was it'll not get any better than that.
Nah, that seemed like the pinnacle. Even you hear Delalio, or you hear Martin Johnson saying, obviously the World Cup for them is probably the pinnacle, but I think it's fairly, I think they said, Delalio a couple of weeks ago on that podcast he was doing was saying that I think his most special memories are probably from that Lions tour, just in terms of pure enjoyment. They looked like they had an unbelievable time, and then what a way with Guscott when the drop goal. I mean, that's etched in everyone's memory.
But they trained hard in that tour. In 97, they trained real hard, and Jim Telfer was a real tough forwards coach. He would not survive nowadays with the guys. The way he talked, and He was my coach at Melrose, so to be fair, it was the same talks that he gave us at Melrose back in the day. But McGeechan and him were great because there was good cop, bad cop. But likes of Delalio and Jason Leonard and these guys, they thrived off
Woody as well. Woody.
Woody.
Like, remember
they thrived off Telfer.
He's the judge.
He's
made for the role, isn't he?
It was a great time to play, and just a change over to professionalism. And the guys, I mean, to be fair, all the Lions tours, they all include having a few drinks and getting to know each other. And I think when we landed in Perth in 1989, we'd had a few drinks at Oatlands Park in Surrey before we went, obviously, but we went for a little run around, and then McGeechan goes, right boys, over here at the bar, there's barbecue going, and there was beers, and then we just got smashed, and got to know each other better.
I don't think you try explaining that, like, the best way to get to know someone is having a beer, and you explain that to someone outside of rugby, they're like, you just love drinking. The worst excuse ever to have a beer.
Borderline alcoholic.
The next morning, we're a lot closer.
But it is. I suppose a bit more honesty, and people get loosened up a little bit, maybe a little bit too much sometimes. But
they're good things, though. You kind of open up and you're having a bit of a laugh about someone making a fool. Whatever it is, it opens up the tour, I think, and you need to, because that pressure of a Lions tour on how quickly you've got to come together and usually play one of the best teams in the world. To my mind, the key thing is not necessarily what the tactics are. You really want to keep that kind of simple, or fairly simple at least, until the latter part of the tour when you're all comfortable together. But the start of it, getting everyone on the same page, make sure you got that bond together.
Trust,
you're going to go into the trenches.
You
can go in the trenches together. You
don't know these. I didn't know the guys that well, but I had Rob Jones inside me, and I mean, you couldn't have asked for a better guy inside you. He passed the ball right wherever you want. If you put your hands there, the ball was there. He was like a bullet, and he was fantastic to play outside right throughout that tour. But just everybody, back lines. But I mean, Brendan Mullen, you had John Devereux. There was some quality players.
I guess 4 nations to 1, the sort of people outside of rugby would just assume, that will instantly make you better. But as you said, rugby's like emotion's a massive part of it, and you used the word being in the trenches. Those relationships. Just can you try and get across the challenge of making 4 nations into one team in a short space of time?
Well, I think you touched on it really well. Like you haven't got much time, so I think 2017, the first session we had as a whole squad was 2 days before our first game on tour, and so to get that bond and understanding, that's the pressures of it. And I think the management have to do a really smart job of getting a good blend of time on the feet, on the training field, but then time as a squad away from rugby as well. And I thought it grew as you move on, because in 2017 we were playing the 2-time World Cup winners, the best team in the world. No one gave us a chance in hell, and I think we were able to just go about our business and get closer. And I think, I don't know how you felt, but I thought if there was a test the following week, a decider, I think we were on the ascending far better.
Yeah. I think what makes a big difference as well is the experience of boys who have done it before. Because I think if you tried to do it with a group who had never toured before together, or never been on a tour, it might be more challenging. But the guys who have been there and done it before, I think, guys like yourself who had done it before in 2017, Johnny Sexton, Owen Farrell, those guys who had been before in those kind of important positions, I think they kind of understand the importance of getting together and getting on the same plan quickly. And so when those guys are driving it, it's like everyone follows those guys. They've been there, they've done it, and they play in that pivotal position. So
I guess you had an extra challenge as well in 21. It's like you were kind of contained in your hotels for hours on end.
Yeah, 21. 21 wasn't great, and I do feel sorry for the guys who that was their only tour, because the fans and the stadiums and experience in the country is what make it so special. I remember we were in Johannesburg when we first got out there, and they were like to us, as the Lions do, we've got a great day out planned, and they were like, okay, we're going to the safari park, but you've got to go in the discoveries that the Lions had, and you've got to keep your windows up the whole time. And I was like, I might as well go on YouTube. Like, there's just no point. And so it just took away from it a bit, to be honest with you. And it did make it more challenging because, as you said, the emotion of Lions tours is really important. And you get emotion from the fans before the game and the build-up and all that stuff. And when they're not around, it wasn't great, I'll be honest. You know, some boys enjoyed it because we were locked in a hotel and we had drinks, and some boys really loved that. But I think it took away from what the Lions is really about. Well,
you've already mentioned Andy Powell, and I'm more than happy to hear more stories about Powley. But who are the other characters from your tour? Maybe the ones that people wouldn't know the stories about, because quite often it's the guys in the midweek team that are the sort of heart and soul. I understand Rory Best was a great tourist.
Yeah, Lord Best.
Lord Best.
Another good one was Sean O'Brien.
Oh, God,
you know,
elite.
He was like brilliant. You know, he'd love. You struggle to get the mic off him. You know, he'd always be chatting on the bus. He'd always have a good story, and he'd make sure the boys' mood was good. He'd be a great barometer of like where we're at as a team, as a squad, of like how Sean he is. And you know, he was a great tourist. I think the experience he had in 2013 as his first tour, then in 2017 he was even better again, because like that experience had just grown him in his confidence. And yeah, like so much time for him. And
there's a bit of Powley and Shawnee, all right.
Yeah, they get on.
He's a good, he's one of the all-time.
Yeah.
Shawnee, yeah.
I think the ones that most people talk about as elite tourists are the ones who are the best drinkers, to be honest with you. Like, for me, Toby Faletau was... The bloke wouldn't say boo to a goose, and then you give him a couple of drinks and the bloke was trying to devise the tactics to beat the Springboks and the All Blacks. Like, he was... I always loved being around him. Another person I'd throw out there was Carl Sinclair, who was sat in Sean O'Brien's under his wing the entire tour. Like, honestly, you could say anything to Carl. Sean could have said anything to Carl and he'd have done it. But those were two I would say stand out for me.
And what makes a great British and Irish Lions tourist?
Team, you gotta have that team first, I think.
No ego.
Yeah, like even so, that must have really hurt. I think that's an unbelievable example. The you know, Brian say coming up to shake your hand afterwards. You know what I mean? That must have really hurt. But like that's what he's a Lions captain for a reason. You know, is that he was able to kind of shelve that and say, listen, best of luck, and we're all on the same page, even if it really hurt. And like everyone here knows, or hopefully you don't know, but if I'm sure we did at some stage, that, you know, getting dropped from a team, like it really hurts, you know. So I think they're probably some of the best tourists, people who can kind of get themselves going again, can train brilliantly. I thought Andy Powell was a brilliant tourist for us, because centre of the crack, but also he showed up for training every day. Now I don't know how he did it, but he did it, and he showed up, and he was like, he had great energy and a positive vibe around the team. So they're kind of, to my mind, on the tour I was on, that was kind of the key elements of it. You know, people who weren't getting selected, really, really important for the test team and getting them ready, whether it's training well, but also having a good vibe around the camp. And it's kind of hard to put your finger on exactly what that is, but it's generally
I suppose one rotten apple and it can.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
Lot, right?
Yeah, no, the boys are right. You've got to be part of the team. You want to be part of no matter if you're on the bench, if you're not on the bench, if you're a dirt tracker, you know, you've got to be back in it up on a Wednesday or Tuesday, whenever the midweek team played. You know, it's really important to keep them winning as well, to keep the whole thing rolling along. And the only game we did lose in that trip in '89 was that first test. We won every other game on the tour. And in those days, when we played New South Wales or Queensland, all the test boys were playing. You know, we played the Anzacs, all the test boys were playing in that as well. So, you know, I think Michael Lina played against us 4 or 5 times. 5 times. 5 times on that trip. But I think Stevie Smith was probably one of the... Stevie Smith, the hooker from Ballymena, 30 miles north of Belfast. That's how he used to introduce himself, is how you doing? Stevie Smith, 30 miles north of Belfast. So he was a character, but he just go drinking in his own sometimes, you know. If he didn't say very much, he was quite a quiet fella, and he used to just take himself off to a pub and find a Guinness, and he'd be sitting in the bar having a Guinness, and you know, we'd go and find him and have a drink with him and stuff. But yeah, he was a great character. But everybody was. Brian Moore was, you know, he could be like a great guy one minute, you know, drinking and having a great laugh, and then he'd be serious as the next. he's battle face on. But we all came together and managed to win that third test. But the second test was the turnaround, and that was the big.
What's it called? The Battle of
Ballymore.
Ballymore.
Yeah. So it wasn't a big ground back in those days. It was only be about 12,000, 15,000, I think, something like that. But that was at scrum time, and Robert Jones stamped on Nick Farr Jonesy's foot, and then he started swinging for Jonesy, and Jonesy started swinging at him and kept missing. And then all the forwards, the three policemen, Ackford, Dooley and Dean Richards, they just started getting stuck in.
Putting a tear up.
What's it called, 99?
No,
that was the Invincibles tour.
That was
Willie John McBride's thing. But I think you were channeling a bit.
It
of
was
that,
very similar. It was very similar. It was like, we're not taking a backward step here, because I think the forwards got beaten up in the first test. Aussie pack were pretty strong, but Nick Farr Jonesy started it. The smallest guy in the field started it, and we got everybody fighting it. He didn't finish it, but Wade Dooley and Finlay Collier, with some pretty tough boys. Brian Moore, David Soule, they all got stuck in, and that was a turning point. And then Jerry dropped a goal at the end to win the. No, he scored a try and dropped a goal. He did both. So he's got form, but he had one cap in that tour. He went on that trip with one cap under his belt against Romania, and he wasn't even meant to go on the trip. He was Will Carlin called off, he couldn't go, and Jerry got called up, and
that is another part of Alliance story. We talked about, or you were asking the question about experienced campaigners, but I always love the Bolter conversation. Is always a great one, isn't it? Because every tour seems to have someone who either isn't capped or something like that, and they always add a bit of value too as well. Whether it's obviously the bit of fun with the line Teddy bringing that around and trying to find it when everyone's trying to hide it on them or whatever, just small bits. But I think they bring something else to it. You have to have. I completely agree with Anthony saying that. You need to have a few people who've been on a few tours, just a bit of know-how about how to bring the group together. But you need to have a few unknowns as well who don't have some of the battle scars. And
like that. You'll say that, but Jerry had one cap against Romania, and he was more confident than anybody.
I was going to ask that.
Yeah, he thought he was one of the best players I played against. So he told me anyway. But he had a confidence. He had an arrogance about him. But it was he could play, and he backed up in the field, on the training field. He just glided the way he ran, and he was I played with him quite a few times in the Barbars as well. So he was a great. I got on really well with him, but yeah.
He must have got humbled on a few socials, no?
He got humbled. He was up in court a few times.
Yeah, of course.
He was up in court a few times. I can't say what for, but.
Gents, the clipboard's come out. I want to use your collective minds, and we're going to select a British and Irish Lions squad for Australia 2025.
Squad or team?
Both. Well, we'll rattle through this, because I think there's some positions and there's a lot of names that I think we could probably come to a consensus fairly quickly. There's a couple of positions where I think we could be here for another hour having a chat. But I'll base this on a 40-man squad. Your three hookers. I'm happy to chuck names in the mix, and you can just pick.
Sheehan's got to go.
Kelleher.
Dewi Lake.
Sheehan, Kelleher, Lake back available now for Wales. Jamie George for England. Is there anyone else outside of those?
He could be a captain, maybe. I quite like it. I like Jamie
He's not
George.
starting. Is he starting?
Don't know. Well, yeah, I suppose Karen Dickey's ahead.
The chat is Dewi Lake's the guy from what he should be going, or he should be thereabouts.
It'd be interesting to see how he goes now in the next couple of games. Like if he's called back into the squad and he's got an opportunity to show what he can do, he'd definitely be wanting to put his hand up.
So if we go Sheehan, Lake, and who's the third name then? You've got Kelleher, George seem to be the two.
Kelleher, yeah.
Kelleher, right, fine, there we go. Hookers. You can get stuck in the comments with the thoughts. Lou said prop then.
You see, you've asked four backs to pick
no
Cox.
care.
Who cares? Well, just rattle through the forwards. So we got Porter, Genge, Schoeman, Nicky Smith.
Porter, Genge, Schumann.
Fought against Scumin, is
Yeah,
that it? Right, fine, we're done.
Yeah.
There we go. Told you it'd be
Do
quick
it
with some
yourself,
positions. Tight head props. Obviously, we haven't seen Tyg Furlong in the Six Nations, but he's one of those players that's got that experience and pedigree.
Beelum actually might be.
Who?
Beelum has been really good.
Fagerson may go, Scottish tight head. He's
very good.
he's solid. He needs to maybe sometimes do a bit more than loose, but he's a good scrum. He's a good scrummager, and he always holds his own.
If you had to pick 3 out of those 4 that you mentioned, Xander Fagerson,
Will Stewart's
Will
got a chance.
Stewart, I was going to say, he's playing very well.
Yeah.
And then you got the 2 Irishmen, Furlong and Beelum. If you had to, one of those had to miss out.
I think if Furlong's fit, he probably goes. I just think he's just like if
Think
you want to
he'll
play
go.
any
Maybe
kind of
Beelum
expansive game, he's like
book
I
a
know
holiday-
it's weird to say, but a tighter
Book a
prop,
holiday in
he's-
Australia and
Yeah,
wait
if he
for
goes,
the
but
injury.
I just think Furlong's just when he's on his day, if he's fit, he's like different gravy. I think, yeah.
Okay. Now, there's loads of spots. I'm going to say we've got 12 spots in the lock and back row position, some who can play in all positions. So who are the ones straight away that are just on the
Told
plane?
you.
Tagburn.
Toji, Tagburn.
It's OJ and Byrne, okay.
I think McCarthy.
McCarthy.
Yeah.
Joe McCarthy. And then if you other lock options, you've got James Ryan, Ollie Chesham, George Martin.
Like they
David
Ireland play
Jenkins.
better with James Ryan in there. James Ryan and Byrne. Like I think it told you for me it's got to start no matter what. But I don't know. It's those two are playing really.
I think Toji and Byrne will be starters.
yeah. Byrne is too. He just
Burns unbelievable.
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 McCarthy, Ryan, and then you could take another one like Chesham or Martin.
I think
Chesham can play
I think
blindside.
Chesham. I
Nice
don't. Our guys, we've lost. I don't think
Cummings is.
Cummings has been injured. He could have had a chance, but he's not been playing. So I don't think he will be either.
Maybe David Jenkins.
Do you think that will come into the thinking where there's maybe 50-50s?
No.
No, it can't. It can. I was just wondering. It can't.
Yeah, he don't.
He doesn't care, man.
not,
That guy.
yeah.
He's
But there isn't place for sentimentality because as we've said, there are great players who've never gone on Alliance tours.
Yeah, but I think for like say the Scottish team this year when they played Ireland, I think it was really important for the Scottish players to play well against Ireland. To say like, listen, we're as good as the guys that we're playing against here, and if they'd won that game, that would be a big statement to Andy Farrell that listen, we want to be on your tour. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, especially in the forwards. We didn't front up, so I think it's going to be a bit harder for some of our forwards to get on this trip. Although they did play well on Saturday against England, so.
A few of the back rowers we've gone.
But I've been looking at the back row before I came here, and
Nuts.
how do you get into that back?
Yeah.
How do you get in?
How many second row have we got now?
That's 4, unless you want a fifth one.
Four's enough.
We'll probably bring a hybrid, wouldn't you?
Yeah, hybrids,
few
which
guys
is
who are
why I
good.
wonder whether Chesham might get on the plane because he
I think
can play back row.
Chesham maybe. Yeah.
But so Marrow can, Tygburn can. There's a few of them who. I don't think lock to 6 is that much of a.
you're right.
You say that like you know what
Yeah, actually,
We can always add another name later.
mate, I remember on that 2017 tour to New Zealand, for some reason, I don't know why not many backs were training, and they made me do pick and goes against Marrow and Alan Wynne. Oh my God, I've never been more filled in my life. It was an absolute travesty. So I do know what I'm talking about.
All right, we can always come back to that, but let's start filling some spots in the back row then. Who are the on the plane guarantees?
Doris.
Curry.
Doris, yeah.
Tom
Thing.
Curry.
Tom
like
Curry.
Jack Morgan.
I think
Jack Morgan's got to go.
Got to go.
Jack
The
Morgan's
heart
gotta
of
go.
that lad
Yeah,
is
yeah.
just.
Where will they
unreal.
play though? Where will 7?
It's
Van der Veer as well.
Van.
Yeah.
He's got to go. Like
I think he might go, but
I like Beard.
Baird's be great on the bench for you.
Dynamic.
Yeah.
big unit
And he
as
can
well.
play row if you're really stuck. If you go with a 6-2, Baird is lovely to have there.
Rory Darge has been playing well.
Just
Ben
good,
Earl.
yeah.
Richie.
Ben Earl.
Ri-
Jeez, yeah,
Richie
Ben
played well.
Earl.
Richie
Yeah.
played well on Saturday.
Like, do you know who's playing unbelievable? And you could have made a good case for him starting ahead of Doris last year was Jack Conan.
Yeah.
Jack Conan has turned every game that he's played, like against England, that was in the melting pot. And he came on, I think Jack Conan's playing unbelievable.
I know he's injured the start, but Jack Dempsey's good.
Yeah, he's excellent.
I know he is good. He's an 8. He's an 8, out and out 8, I think, isn't he?
Back row is a nightmare to pick.
We've
don't
got
wanna
Toby. I don't think you can rule out
he was,
Toby.
yeah, it's unbunbelievable on the weekend, yeah.
You know,
And a
he's-
tourist, is, like, he knows
Yeah.
what it's about as well.
I don't think anyone else plays like him, which I think
No.
is his advantage.
Skills are amazing.
If we can get through this, we're into the stuff that's your bread and butter. We're into the back line. But this is where the selections are going to be. This one, isn't it?
But yeah,
So-
I think Jack Morgan might have a chance of being
Yeah.
to play in that company. I think you'll see the best of him.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think he could be amazing on
Honestly,
tour.
it's,
I feel like we're forgetting names as well. There's that many contenders. So I've got that
Doris
you
is a
mentioned.
shoe-in. Like he might. Would he? Is he a
Doris
it's him and Itoje
he'd
maybe
be
for
captain.
is
I
it
think
maybe?
Doris will be
I
captain.
think Doris will be captain as well.
Do you?
Yeah.
Only because he,
It's a big step, but like he hasn't been on a tour. You know, Itoje's been on a
true.
tour. You
That's
know?
a good point.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. But Doris, I think, and everyone.
I think there'll be a lot of Irish
he's
players
so
in the
going to be a
team. so-
guaranteed starter, isn't he?
It does. Yeah.
He will be,
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you are.
but so will Itoje, I think.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. I think yeah.
Oh, let's stick with that for a second then, because they seem to be two names that come up a lot, and I don't see a guaranteed starter outside of those two and Jameson Gibson Park. We'll come on to that. So, skipper, let's name your skipper then. You seem to be talking about it's going to be a forward.
I think he'll go with what he knows.
That's what I think. Yeah.
You're thinking Doris.
Yeah.
But he knows he's worked for Amaro a lot.
Yeah, Maro.
I know.
I just like Maro that he's been on a tour.
Yeah, that does make a
He'd be kind of
difference.
used to. Like I remember, one of the things that shocked me on the Lions tour was just there's kind of a different level of aggression with kind of English media. Like, and I remember being like, and the room was so much bigger. You know what I mean? I remember like the Irish thing. The Irish
media is
guys.
pretty fierce.
Depends where you're sitting, yeah. No, but I do remember. No, it's a bit more like. I remember some of the questions. They were just so much more pointed. Like they're way friendly. I just felt it was way friendlier with the Irish. Like the funny one is the World Cup. Sorry, I'm digressing here, but do you remember the English team got in trouble in the World Cup in New Zealand?
What one?
No, but
Just when
they all went out to that pub and they got in trouble.
Right, yeah.
The week before, the Irish team were in there with the Irish journalists doing the exact same thing. So like I do remember that it was that was a difference. So I wonder about Doris, and I wonder is it a big ask for him to do both? That's my one thing about that. Whereas I think Itoje would have been used to the bigger room, just a little bit more pressure. I know he's new to the job, but Doris is too. So I don't know. It's just a thought. Maybe for me, Itoje, but I don't know. The guys sound like.
I think you can't go wrong with either. I don't want to sit on the fence, but like it's
You're
not.
spoiled for choice.
Yeah.
Happy days, right? Well, they're definitely in the leadership group. But back to the back row then. We've got Doris on the plane.
Jack Morgan.
Jack Morgan seems to be a consensus there.
If Toby's fit, he'll go.
Yeah.
I think.
He will now.
Okay,
definitely.
maybe at the expense of Conan, like you were saying, who has played very well and was the starter on
Cohen's
the
a
last
tourist
tour.
as well. He's gone on a tour.
I think.
But I think Falta was he was excellent.
I do like Baird, though, when you know.
Gives it a bit of versatility, doesn't he? A bit.
Ben
Feels
Earl,
that-
in terms of
Ben Earl,
versatility, you've got Curry's playing 6 and 7. Earl plays right across the back row. Jack Willis, we haven't even mentioned.
Jack Willis, yeah.
That's why I think that there's a lot of contentious decisions around people who aren't playing in England. I think that when you've got this
come on
much
to 10.
competition, let me not go into that one. But I think whenever there's some other issues outside of straight selection where there's already so much competition, I think it just makes for too much of a headline, and a potential
good though.
distraction.
All right, I'll tell you what.
Jack Willis is a freak. Yeah.
I think what I might do is we've thrown a load of names out there, and it's the fiercest area in the whole team to get on the plane. There's going to be some brilliant players that don't travel. So let's just pick a test starting back row. If you had to pick your 3.
Doris.
Even that's tough.
Yeah, no, Doris will be.
Doris is
I think Jack Morgan will play himself in.
I feel like Van der Fleer is
He's playing back to his World Player of the Year levels, isn't he, at the minute?
He's probably just below that for me, and I think that's probably why everyone's saying Morgan, because Morgan's just like so eye-catching, so many big moments.
This is why we need.
I honestly wouldn't argue with it if you said
Either or,
I'd be
like,
happy to go with the group on that one, but feels like, geez, are we leaving out a World Player of the Year?
Who would you go with
Yeah.
6?
Well, that's why we need a forward in here, because they would talk about line-outs and all that stuff.
Who are the sixes?
Jack plays 6 on the weekend.
Oh yeah, true.
So if you go Van der Fleer, Jack,
Do you leave
Curry,
something in the line?
Curry.
well you do, but then you need big second rows now. And then are you light with Tyke Byrne?
But maybe Doris does it for you.
Oh yeah,
He's
true.
decent,
So are you picking Morgan, Van der Fleer, Doris?
No.
I don't think so.
I think
Who are you going with
a
then,
big ball
JD?
carrier as well in the back row.
I don't know. Doris hasn't played 6, has he?
He has
He
played
has,
6,
and
but
7.
you don't see him. You just don't see him like you see him for the rest of the
Okay.
game. The only thing you could argue is that if you bring Faletau in and you put Doris is still good at 6, but I feel like he's a bit diminished there.
Yeah.
I think the free role helps him a little bit, but if you were trying to fit guys in,
I think on paper, with everyone playing at their best, that's the best back row that they could put out.
who Faletau,
Faletau, Doris.
yeah,
I
I
think
wouldn't.
so.
How old's Tugger?
34, 33, 34, yeah, I'm not sure which.
That might be, for me. That actually, yeah, I hadn't thought. I wouldn't have considered putting.
Yeah,
Doris
there's
there,
all the
but
tactics and all that stuff, but on, on form, on
Amazing
paper.
story as well, wouldn't it? Just as a bloke to get yourself.
4 tours now, would it be?
Yeah.
Yeah.
4 tours. Amazing.
4, is it? Unbelievable.
Is that a record?
Right.
Alan Wynn's got.
17.
All right then, we can.
9s, is it?
You're on home turf now. Scrum halves, 3 spots.
Gibson Park.
Yeah.
Tommaso Williams.
Yeah. And then
And
this.
is it Ben White or Alex Mitchell?
Yeah.
Third spot.
I don't know. I thought Ben White played well on Saturday again. I think it's a tough one. It's a toss of a coin.
It is that one.
It's a toss of a coin. I think Ben White's done well. I like him. He runs great lines, support lines. He's he's a bit like Saturday reminded me a bit of DuPont on Sunday, the way that he backed up and stuff.
And if you're picking Gibson Park, which I think it sounds like everyone thinks he's the shoe in, it's more like for, just in terms of the damage you can do and the pace you're playing at, it's more similar for the team to bring someone like that. I don't know, just maybe.
I wouldn't be surprised if
to
they
that.
go with a 9 who plays very differently. Ben Spencer could be one.
Yeah, fair.
If they want to play a completely different.
Yeah,
I
Mitchell's
know
good.
it's-
Mitchell's
Oh no,
good.
I'm not saying he's,
Mitchell's
but he
good
plays
player.
similar to the other.
Yeah.
Horn's been good off the bench.
Who? Horn, yeah.
There's a lot of Scots fans would
But
have him
he doesn't
starting.
even get on the bench though. Last week, they had Dobie in the bench last
Conor
week.
Murray, forget him.
And that is exactly to your point. That's completely different. And
Yeah.
you can see the value of that at different points. Like that kicking game
Yeah,
is just,
and he's done it. You've seen him picking Conor Murray on the bench.
and he's a big game player. Where he's real cool, head and shoulders.
And he know that role. Like, I don't think, knowing Conor, he'd be like, I'll execute that role I have with the team.
And he's physical. Like, if you decide to go a different way against Australia and not kind of get into a firefight out wide, and you say, well, look, we think we've got an advantage in the pack here. Murray's a nice guy to guide you around there too. So there's a lot of different names there.
Jameson, Gibson Park, Thomas Williams, and come on then, between the 4 of you. Otherwise, what are you going with?
I'm happy to go with Murray. I think that this.
I might, Ben Spencer. I might go.
I don't think Murray will go. I think it'd be Mitchell or Ben White.
Probably have to be starting, do you? Or is that, or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you have to pick a specific team.
Mitchell.
Don't have to, but
Yeah, Mitchell maybe. I like Mitchell.
Mitchell has got his spot on the plane. Right then, I'll turn to you first, Craig, fly half. This is tough because in tours gone by, some of the names you've already mentioned,
Listen,
Johnny
I think-
Sexton, Owen Farrell,
I think
Dan Bigger, big names. There's a load of youngsters now.
Picking on Farrell, so.
Finn's not had his best first 2 games, but I thought his gameplay was outstanding last week. I thought he was excellent last week. Goal kicking is a big problem, obviously, if he kicks like he did on Saturday.
He's been good though, hasn't he?
But
he
he's,
has been.
up to that, he's been good. He's got 38% so far in the 6 Nations, which isn't great. But Finn will go. Finn will be on the plane. I think Prendergast will go.
Wow.
He looks like he has so much time on the ball.
I think he'll go.
Watching him Saturday.
He's young. I think he'll definitely go. And I don't think anyone from Wales will go. I think Finn. 3?
Does Smith go? 'Cause
Marcus is definitely
just
going.
He's
definitely
he's
going.
electric, like, and
Who?
I think Marcus has the Test jersey at the moment.
What?
Yeah.
I think
Lions?
so, yeah.
Oh, I don't.
No,
he's
no,
sure
no,
not even
no,
starting.
no.
He's my ace in the hole, I think. He's like I bring him because I go right if I'm struggling or I want to put him on the bench.
I think
He can change the
I
game
think
for
if he goes as a utility. I don't think he goes as
That's
out
what-
of 10.
Yeah.
I've seen
He's
him
not
play.
15.
He's not.
though.
He's
No.
But he's not. I don't think he's at club level. I think he's outstanding at 10 when the Harlequins were flying the last 2 seasons. But he doesn't dominate a game from 10.
I think
He's
he's
an
doesn't
argument
do
with
it.
Finn though. For me, that's one thing when I see Finn. Sometimes I love watching him play, But I just sometimes feel like, particularly against, maybe just because I'm watching the Irish games more, they're kind of etched to my mind, and maybe some of the ones against Leinster, I feel like he can kind of get at him a bit, and he can get a bit unstuck in some of the games. To me, you've got to be thinking about Owen Farrell. I just think personality.
That can happen.
Do you not think? No. I think he, to me,
If he was playing for Racing, he's been injured a lot. If he'd
He'll
been
be
playing,
33 by the tour, yeah.
I don't think he can go.
really. I think for me, like to me,
it would
he
hype
is
the tour up
obvious.
so much.
Oh,
if he did.
jeez.
But like you can pick people who aren't playing like regularly in the, you know.
But you can,
internationally.
yeah.
Like, it's
But-
not, and it's not like he hasn't got the experience.
And Racing won't be in the playoffs.
He's not been playing much. He's not been playing much, has he?
No, he's been injured.
He's been
Oh,
injured.
yeah, tough out there, I think.
So
He wasn't kicking as well, I don't think.
no, I don't. I mean, the kicking thing. Finn's kicking was good last year. I mean,
Really good last year.
And
Really
you've played with Marcus Smith and Owen Farrell. So what's your thought on both?
different
For the
players.
tour,
Yeah.
definitely different players, yeah, for sure. I think Marcus, if you put Marcus how he plays in a Scotland jersey the way they play, I think he's in the top 3 10s in the world. I think Marcus is special. He can do things that other 10s can't, and I think that gives him an advantage when being selected. So if it was down to me, I would have Finn, definitely. I'd have Marcus on the tour for sure, if not starting. And then, again, if we're going on out and out on paper, I think Owen is definitely still.
Yeah.
But whether it's likely or not, if you don't take him, then they might go with 2 10s. Blake,
They might go with 2.
2013.
Yeah.
He did in 2013.
But even Finn Smith. I mean, he was man of the match
Yeah.
the other week.
Yeah.
You know, he's a tidy player. He can control a game. He's young, but he didn't play well on Saturday against us. He didn't have a good game. Kicked the goal that won the game, but he didn't have a great game.
Feels like he's got a big future there.
He has.
I think he fits England better, a little bit better. I actually completely agree on the Marcus Smith thing. He's magic to watch, but I just feel like he just fits the mold just a little bit better for what I
runs
think.
the
If I
game.
think of great England teams, I just think he is more in the mold of a great.
Yeah, he's
England
more like a
team.
Rob Andrew.
I think what we're looking at
Johnny
is not
Wilkinson.
great England.
Oh,
team.
sorry, yeah, no, I
Like,
just mean just on that point.
yeah,
Yeah,
I think I'm thinking, right, Andy Farrell, the way Ireland played, who would I could put into that system
yeah.
and would look good? And Marcus Smith
Oh yeah,
in that Irish system
at the
would be
back.
so
and- yeah,
dangerous,
yeah.
especially the quality that'd be outside of him as well. So it's he's spoiled for choice.
I just sometimes think Marcus isn't looking outside him sometimes. He's looking for himself a lot of the time. I personally feel.
But I mean, the amount of breaks he makes.
That's what I mean.
Yeah,
If you can do it,
you
you're
got it,
young.
yeah.
But I think sometimes when he gets put back to full back, he looks more dangerous.
He looked great. Yeah, he is dangerous back there.
He's got back to. I mean, in the autumn, he got put back there. And he actually looked more dangerous at full back than he did at 10.
He's got electric pace.
So
yeah.
it's a difficult one. He's a talented player. I like the way he plays, but I just think he doesn't dominate.
I'd be
dominate
in
a
your
game.
world on it too. To be honest with you, he's a guy I love watching, and I think I'd be on my tour. I think because he could change a game for you, and if you need that, but I can't see him in my starting team.
I think
to
he
be
might,
honest.
as Foxy says, he might go as a utility kind of. He could play in it. He could play.
Yeah.
Could play scrum half probably if you
If
needed
you
him.
need a try, he's the guy you want to bring it on. You know.
Yeah.
So we've got Finn Russell, Marcus Smith, and then it's either one of the new kids on the block, youngsters, Finn Smith or Sam Prendergast, or the old stager Owen Farrell, the warhorse, coming back for one last ride.
I think, by the way, I interviewed Andy Farrell a couple of weeks ago. I think Prendergast will definitely go.
Oh, okay.
He loves him.
Inside
They
info.
love him.
There's been huge talk about him. I remember talking to Leo
I talked
Cullen
to
about
Sexton about it as well.
Yeah.
They love him.
He looks so comfortable with the ball in his hands.
How tall is he? He's quite tall for a 10. Isn't he?
Yeah, he looks like runs like Sexton as well. The model,
He's quite
no,
tall.
I just think they look at the scene apparently in training because everyone's in uproar in Ireland at the moment that Jack Crowley's not getting a look in, but
He's a good player as well.
He's a
Mark.
good player as well.
We haven't even discussed him, and he won a Grand Slam last year.
He got man of the match in
Can't
the
believe I
first
didn't even
game.
mention him.
Didn't
Yeah.
even mention him,
That
but like
50-22, the spiral he put in against
Magic.
Wales was
magic.
like spectacular.
Was that Prendergast?
Yeah,
Prendergast,
but the
yeah.
argument is then the bit afterwards where like he got done for it, like at home, particularly by the Munster supporters, surprisingly. But he when the one he goes out in the full afterwards, where he just feels look, he'll learn from that because international rugby you just don't have that time.
No.
He thinks he does checks, puts a bad one out in the full, and Wales very close, a different linesman.
Yeah.
that could be a try, you know.
True,
So.
but I think his ceiling is so high. His ceiling is so high.
No,
I think that
he'll-
Irish connection will have something to, like you're saying.
So
I reckon
well,
it'll be him.
The
Won't
way
it?
you said that.
I just
Yeah,
felt
he
like-
knows something. doesn't he?
Sorry,
His
he
old mate
he obviously
Faz.
couldn't, like, it wasn't like exactly chatting us, but he just, the way he was talking about him, I just felt like, okay, that guy, he's going to be sticking with him. Definitely in an Irish jersey, and you'd have to feel like if he goes okay, if Ireland win next week,
Yeah.
he's
I
shooting
think
to
he'll
go,
go.
I think.
Yeah. Big test next week. Massive test
Massive.
next week.
JD, I'm coming to you now. Centres,
Yeah.
4, maybe 5 spots on the plane.
Okay.
Feel free to chip in, gents, but this guy knows a thing or two.
I would go Bundy Aki.
Yeah.
I thought he changed the game on Saturday, Wales v Ireland. Hugh Jones, he can't stop scoring. Tupeloto, if he's fit, I think has to go.
Oh, yeah.
He-
He's starting, is he? Maybe.
Aki,
Tupeloto?
That's hard to put, yeah.
Yeah,
If he's
like-
fit,
that's-
if Tupeloto's fit, I think he's equally as.
They're very much,
Yeah.
your 12 has a mould
Very
because they're
similar.
both similar, skillful
Yeah.
and very
I
physical.
loved having a 12 like that. Just to,
Oh,
Could you double up with if they were the 2
No.
best players? Could they work together?
no, I don't think so.
Oh,
no.
that didn't work well. Ireland tried that with McCluskey
Tupeloto
and
and
Oh,
Aki
Van
a
Dijk.
couple of years ago, and
Yeah.
it was a nightmare.
Yeah.
No, one or the other.
I think they're too good. They're too
Great
good.
options.
They're perfect at that as well. I'm sorry.
Would
keep
you
going.
go Ollie Lawrence?
I
Or
would go Ollie
Yeah,
Lawrence.
he's
Yeah.
great. He's
Yeah.
excellent, yeah.
What would that
Physical too.
Yeah.
Ringrose, he's never been on a Lions tour,
Yeah,
Gary
he has
Ringrose.
to. I feel so. He has to go, in my opinion. I think he's
Who's
quality.
trying to think.
Then you'll have
It's
3
Henshaw-
13s and
Henshaw
2.
maybe.
Henshaw,
Oh,
Henshaw's
yeah.
the other one. So if you had to pick, I mean, you could take all 6
I don't think
potentially,
Henshaw goes.
Maybe not.
but
It's about the.
if you had to leave one of those 6 names, so the 3 Irishmen, Aki, Henshaw, Ringrose, Jones and Tupeloto and Ollie Lawrence, you had to leave one behind.
Probably Henshaw. I think.
But
I
he
think Lawrence, I
can
think.
play 12 and
Yeah,
30.
Yeah.
But I think
He's a serious
if
player.
Finchley is 10, he plays with Lawrence at Bath, and he's got him playing.
True, that's a good point.
Yeah,
You know,
that's a
he's
very
got that
good point.
He's
connection.
going to have to think of combinations. Like, it is important, you know.
I think you've got your
He's massive.
12s and Tupeloto and Aki. Lawrence can play there if needs be. And then you got 2 out and out 13s.
And if you go with like Russell or Smith at 10,
Yeah.
you want to have someone chunky enough next.
Yeah.
I think of like
Yeah.
a real physical player next.
Yeah,
to him.
yeah, that's a good
And
point.
just their experience as well. You could just tell watching Aki on the weekend, he got the boys going, his communication, not only his physicality and stuff, but he just seemed to galvanise the boys, and Tupeloto does that as well.
Just
for
give him
Scotland.
that direction.
Yeah.
Just give him that direction when he came on.
So
If Ringrose doesn't go, he might be one of the best players that's never been on a
There's a
Lions
few good
tour.
ones haven't gone.
Yeah,
I
there's a
thought he
few.
was one of the 13s we had, no? Is that,
Oh yeah, no. I'm saying if he were to
Oh,
go,
sorry,
because you're
sorry,
right.
sorry,
It's a night.
Does it sound like we have? There's, I don't know. To my mind,
Yeah.
there's 4 definites. You got Tupeloto, you got Aki, and then in the 13s, because you want to have purists, I think, in each one. You know what I mean? So you got to have Hugh Jones at 13. You got to have probably, I think, Ringrose is probably the only.
Yeah, so it's coming down
Just
to
and then outside of that, whatever you're
Lawrence
picking
or
is
Henshaw,
your
yeah.
preference outside of
I
that.
think
Lawrence has to go
Lawrence
as
has to
well.
go, I think.
Yeah, yeah. So
that's,
there's your
that's
5.
a class
definitely
crop.
go.
Yeah, there's your 5. That's great.
Yeah, and I'll shut up from here now.
Ant and Luke, and obviously feel free to chip in, but back 3. I mean, I've sort of allowed 7 spots.
I think fullback is relatively straightforwardish, especially if you've got Marcus on the tour who can cover there. Kinghorn and Keenan.
Yeah, agree.
yeah.
Kinghorn's playing brilliant for Toulouse.
Yeah.
That move to France is
Yeah.
really
Brilliant,
player.
yeah. Well, in fairness, he was playing a bit of 10, and they were
wasn't a
mixing
10.
around a bit. Well, he
He
wasn't a 10, no, but he was doing a bit of that there.
Exactly.
I always feel at international, like, you
Oh,
gotta kind of specialise at some point.
He
you
can
know what I
kick
mean?
goals as well.
Yeah.
He can kick.
Oh,
It
geez,
might help if
unbelievable,
Finn's
the
like
final. The final of that, he was
Yeah.
one of the best players on the pitch that day against
Yeah,
Leicester.
no, he's good. He's confident. He's
He's
relaxed.
a big boy as well, good pace.
He's
as
chilled.
well. Yeah.
He's quick.
But Keenan, like, look, to my mind, Keenan is probably like he nearly maybe he's come off the ball a little bit since he went on the Sevens tour or the Sevens kind of circuit but since he's come back, I think he's the last month or two, to me, he's really settled in. I thought before he went, he was probably the best fullback in the world, I think, or close, or certainly very close.
He
To
just
me,
don't
he
make
probably
mistakes,
starts,
does he?
you know. I love what he brings. You know, he's the extra pair of hands in there. Very good under the high ball.
His
He's got
work
good.
great off the ball. He
yeah.
doesn't, like, as a 10, I imagine as a 10, when you're putting kicks in and you're finding grass and you're bouncing it. That's a lovely motivator for the forwards as well. Hugan just seems to cover so much ground.
Reads it so well.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed during, I worked on a couple of games at the Aviva, Leinster games during the COVID period as well, and when there was no crowd, and the amount that he organises the backline, the amount he's chatting constantly, whilst also like a greyhound. I think he's one of the fittest men.
Yeah,
in
he
rugby,
has
isn't
that
he?
Bronco.
He's just constantly
constantly
moving, constantly chatting. It was another side of him I hadn't seen, but yeah.
And you know as well, I think he's really tidied up defensively. There was a period where I think he missed one or two. There was one against La Rochelle in the final, but I think since that, he's a player that he's obviously a top guy, because you could tell that he's able to learn from those experiences. That he was, and I think he's come back as an unbelievable defender as well. So I think he's the full package for you there. And the key thing there is, yes, it's great to have a Marcus Smith if you need to change the game back at fullback, but you want that first thing for me is be solid back there. You don't want to be worrying about stuff coming in behind you or pressure back there. And he diffused that. And look, Stewart does it too. To me as well, he's got that bit about him too.
Things can change so quickly. I remember Ugo told me that when he went on his tour with you, he probably went into that Six Nations not expecting to go. And then I think he played really well against Scotland in the second last game of the Six Nations or wherever it was. Next thing you know, he's on the tour. So things can change, Like Freddie could come in and play these last two Six Nations games, be on fire, and then be on the plane. So
for now, we've got Keenan and Kinghorn as your 15s then. So who makes up the rest of the back three spots?
Low. Got to be Low, isn't it?
Yeah, Low's going 100%. Yeah.
Starts the tournament. He's Ireland's best player, I think.
Yeah.
He's so strong. Jeez.
Mitchell, I felt bad for Mitchell out there. That fend, oof.
He would have been one of the only few to have played against and for the Lions if he does go in.
That's mad.
Yeah, it is mad actually. Yeah.
Well, Doohan could have done it.
But do you remember what Johnny did in 2017 when we played the Maoris? Did you play that game, the Maoris?
Yeah.
So obviously on tour you get two jerseys and the guys come in to swap jerseys, and the Maoris brought in jerseys that they were given from the shop. They weren't even matched jerseys. So the 10 for the Maori come in, swap with Johnny, and James Lowe was talking to Johnny because he's going to Leinster, blah, blah, blah. And as James Lowe is leaving, Johnny checks the shirt. He goes, "Hey, James, give that back to your 10 and tell him I don't want a jersey from the club. I can buy that myself." So then we're all looking in our bags. Yeah, give this back to the 13. I don't want this. And then James Lowe was walking out with 10 shirts. And he was just embarrassed then. But yeah, but James Lowe's definitely going.
James Lowe. Who else you taking, Ant? Luke?
Doohan's going.
Doohan's got to go, yeah. And he's been on a tour as well.
Yeah.
They're in the same wing, aren't they? They're in the same wing.
So that's
two serious athletes, in fairness.
They're in the same wing, so
it looks like Emmanuel Faye-Boso, who isn't playing during the Six Nations, is going to have surgery. It might be out of the Lions option now.
Something unusual about the timing of that or whatever. Did he get
if he was fit, he'd be going. No questions.
Freeman.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
I think
they're a bit off, but the Welsh back three was good on Saturday. Really good.
Jeez, we forgot a fullback, mate. Liam is still. I know he's going to miss the rest of the tournament, but
if he's fit.
Yeah. You talk about solid, mate. They don't get much more solid than
Joe Schmidt used to call him. Joe Schmidt used to call him the scaffold.
Yeah.
He was.
Is that what he was? Yeah. We thought I assumed that, but talk about what a player. Yeah, magic. Yeah.
Oh, that break in 17.
Oh, yeah, started
try,
by him.
One of the all-time
Sean
moments.
O'Brien's try, wasn't it?
I had to give it to him. As I turned, I was like, oh.
So, Lowe, Duhan van der Merwe, Tommy Freeman, a 3.
Yeah.
If you had 2 more spots, who'd you give them to? Matt Hansen?
Darcy Graham?
Yeah, I agree.
Darcy Graham?
I think those would be...
Those are the 2?
I would be happy with that.
Matt Hansen and Darcy Graham, Tommy Freeman, Duhan van der Merwe, James Lowe?
Maybe it's a tough one.
Josh Adams as well.
Josh Adams.
He hasn't. I don't think he had a tough defensively against France, albeit pretty difficult to play against him out wide. But to me, he's not where he needs to be at the moment. Even though he's top quality, but
Darcy's not fit at the moment. But the guy that came in and played for him Saturday played really well. Rowe. Kyle Rowe.
I thought the Welsh back three were brilliant on the weekend.
I didn't really see the game that clearly on Saturday, but
I think the matchups come in like Scotland, Wales.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
a
that
big
game,
one, yeah.
there's going to be a massive, I think, decider on certain spots in certain positions, and yes, it's intriguing. I don't know.
They might go with a bolter, like you're saying. You know, you're talking about earlier with that Elliot Me. Is it Elliot Me?
Yeah.
Ellis Me.
Ellis
sorry.
Me.
He was
Ellis
good.
Me.
Yeah, he was
Sorry.
that one just scored in the corner.
Yeah, so he was his first cap on the weekend.
They couldn't tackle him.
Yeah,
He's strong, wiry, kind of, yeah.
He's not obviously as big a set as like Duan and James Lowe, but like he's strong.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's still early doors for him to speak.
Left
You
wing
never
would be
know.
tricky though, wouldn't it? I think it looks to me like those guys probably have
I
it.
think but you got Duhan and Lowe playing the same wing.
I reckon Duan will go play on the right.
Do you think?
Yeah, one of them will have to just flip it.
Well,
But
Can you
James is
imagine-
left foot.
James
Yeah,
got the
would you
lefty,
ever,
yeah.
Would you ever say, no, I'm not going to play a position to be a test lion?
Yeah, no, you.
Is it?
Yeah.
So, unless you step off the left.
Stepping into touch, yeah.
I think we've picked a squad. One final job then, I'll lead this and you chip in. I'm based on what you've said. A starting test 15 for the British and Irish Lions. If everyone's fit and available in that first test, we have got Porter in the 1 jersey, Sheehan in the 2 jersey, 3 jersey, Ferguson, Stewart or Furlong. Furlong, if fit and firing, Furlong. So an all-Irish front row. Second row then, you've already said Vernon Itoje.
Yes.
Is that
So, yeah, it's pretty
okay?
good, that.
Back row, Doris, as you picked him as your captain, he's going to be number 8. And did you say earlier, you said sort of hinted at Van der Fleer and Morgan? But did you go?
I don't think that
That
he'd be a bit
works.
bigger than that.
Oh no! Did you say potentially if he's fit and firing?
Faletau.
Faletau, Doris,
Doris and-
Van der Fleer.
Yeah, we did
or
that.
Morgan.
Yeah, Morgan,
Okay,
sorry, yeah.
all right. Gibson Park is your 9. 10. Come on then, pin your colours to the mast. Is it Finn Russell?
It's got to be Finn Russell.
Look at JD's body language now.
I don't know. I think all the 3 that we picked there.
Yeah.
But it's
We've been in Australia the last 4 or 5 times. We've played them. So.
so there you go.
Shows everyone, isn't it?
I think you lost at the very end.
Wales are losing their son. We gotta shut up.
Shoot.
Yeah, you know that's going to be on.
His injury, it's like Russell.
My bad.
You just made yourself a meme.
Yeah.
I agree with Greg. I think it's probably Finn's turn.
He deserved it. He deserved the first test.
But I think if everyone goes Russell, I wouldn't go against that.
If Owen Farrell gets called up, that would be the story. Just the story and the hype. That would be amazing.
12.
And then JD, you were talking about Aki Jones as your partnership.
Yeah.
Tuipulotu is going to be pushing Aki all the way.
Yeah.
Oof. 15, is it Keenan or Kinghorn? Or could Kinghorn end up on the right wing? Plays there for Toulouse.
That's a shout.
He's
Yeah.
right in the air, good kicking games.
It's a big back 3 end, isn't it?
It is. But I think it's big no matter what, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like if you go to 2.
Does anybody else kick in the back line? Not really. Nobody else.
That's
Backup
actually a
kick.
good point.
So
But even actually kicking out of hand, not many. Do you know what I mean?
Let low.
Oh, yeah, of
Got
course.
low
My bad.
and-
Yeah.
Finn doesn't even take the dropouts.
So it's
Kinghorn takes
Are
him.
you going Keenan low a plus, and then it's so if you had to
It's
move
Duan.
Kinghorn to the wing or
It's
do
gotta be,
it?
It's
If
too
Burbank was fit, I like it.
I
Yeah.
like Furbank too, yeah.
I just don't, it's hard to go if you haven't played at all in the Six
Yeah.
Nations, unless you are, have been before,
Yeah,
experienced.
Very true.
I like Keenan at fullback personally. I just think he's a fully complete player for me, to be honest. And he opens up the
Kinghorn's
pitch
a
for
great
you.
player on the bench as well. You can go 6-2
Yeah,
with him.
that's a good point.
Yeah, fair.
All right, fine.
So
Gents. Oof, I think we made it. Easy as that, Andy Farrell. I think we actually managed to make it. Thank you very much, gents. Appreciate that. Andy Farrell, easy as that. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you, gents. Jonathan, Luke, Anthony, Craig, appreciate your help. Thank you very much, 45 Kensington, for hosting us. And if you want to be there down under for the British and Irish Lions tour, well, thank you very much, Genting Casino. They have got an opportunity for you.